Now let's start the lecture on the seventh cyclical crisis happening in China in the since the year of 1991 to 1995, 1996. That is very close to last time. The last crisis happened in 88, 89. And then it's very soon. It's because of very complicated international current situation, especially caused by American-led Western countries block China again since the year 89. And also the 89 is the year of East European socialist collapse. And caused by different events happened in international society. And China got to deal with not only domestic issue but also the international issues. So that's just the 88, 89 stagflation crisis happened just several years later, and there's the other crisis followed. So that is the seventh. So last time we talked about the sixth cyclical crisis happening in the year of 88, 89. And it's mainly caused by the marketization. When the Chinese central power want to open to West investment, and they got to follow the Western system to marketize the economy in China. And then that make China get a kind of relinking with the Western capitalist society, with the Western capitalism. And then when they marketize their original planning system, especially trying to release control of all the raw materials and the funds and whatever into the markets, and then to give the markets, the market can market decide the price, and to make all the enterprises follow the market system. That is a big change. The first measure of marketization in the year of 1988 immediately turned to the high inflation. So that is the late 1980s problem. But when the early 1990s, and we have to give the background of the early 1990s, why that China very soon to have the seventh cyclical crisis. And the first, we should know that the 1991 is the year of Soviet Union collapse. And after 89, East European socialist countries dismissed, and then followed by 1991 Soviet Union collapse. At that time, most of Western countries, no matter it's media or politician or other field, the mainstream all think that China will be the next. After Soviet Union collapse, and then China will be collapsed. They said maybe next month, maybe next year. So China cannot stand. And that is a very strong price. That's a strong pressure. And also because that time, just when the late 1980s crisis happened, in 1990 and 1991, China is still be in the period of depression, and the economic growth is very low, and the people's income cannot increase. So the local demand, domestic demand, cannot increase. So that is a difficult period, and also caused by the American bloc China, and no foreign investments can flow in China. So this China at that time just in the very special period of readjustment of national industrial structure. They need large amount of investments. That is, but when the capital became very short, it's extremely short. So it means that they cannot keep going of readjustment of the national industrial structure. So most of these problems put together and make the China fallen into a kind of very difficult situation, and also caused by the Soviet Union collapse. The American power can be a kind of polar power in the world, and but meanwhile, there are several new events taking place, like EU, and after Soviet Union collapse, the large number of European capital flow into the Russia and the other Eastern European countries, and took large amount of profit, and then that is the basic events for facilitate the European Union grow up as a power. So originally there's a twin power, the world controlled by United States and Soviet Union. But nowadays, Soviet Union collapse, just 2 years or 3 years later, I mean 1991, Soviet Union collapse, 3 years later, 1994, EU became the second power, not the same competitor of the polar power of US, but the EU is a very important world power and in the international society. So it's very important phenomena. And the second one is NAFTA. So the NAFTA led by US, joined by Canada and Mexico. It's the whole of the North American countries can have the benefits from the regional integration. So it's also very important international events. So the first EU, second is NAFTA, and then the third one is ASEAN. That means Southeast Asian countries, they organize as a kind of ally. So the region nowadays, 1980s, the neoliberalism trying to push the globalization, especially by the financial capital, to keep the global financialization going on. But indeed, after Soviet Union collapse, it's a very practically reality. There are 3 different regional integration organizations burned out. So that is a EU, NAFTA, and ASEAN. So it's also very interesting events internationally. So when we talk about the Soviet Union collapse, we must give some explanation, give some reasons as a different, as a mainstream. We talk about 1980s neoliberalism led by US and the UK. We need to pay attention to what is that time. When US increased the interest rate, when large amount of these international funds is flow inside of US, very soon to make US have a bubbleized financial capital. And this financial capital flow into the stock markets and the future markets and the wholesale market, whatever, created large risk. And then soon to make American have the financial capital crisis in May of 1980s. And at that time, American transfer out their financial crisis by decrease the oil price, increase the green price in the international future markets. And when the oil price decreased, it means that the American's competitor, Soviet Union, originally they have the interest by export the oil. So the oil price decreased, means the Soviet Union have a little trade surplus. And then Soviet Union short of, especially in 1986 to 87, Soviet Union have a short of the grain. I mean, that's because of the natural disaster and something happened, and then they are short of a grain supply. But the grain price increased, even doubled. So it means that Soviet Union must pay more hard currency to buy grain. So one side, when oil price decreased, they have a little surplus. They have even no surplus. Another side, when grain price goes high, they need to pay more hard currency to buy grain. So that means unbalance. That means the deficit in Soviet Union. And then that is one reason of the Soviet Union, the society cannot be satisfied. It's similar as nowadays, in the new century, Venezuela, Iran, and Russia, they all have almost the same problem. When the oil price decreased and the grain price increased, these future markets have such kind of similar phenomena happened in 1980s to exactly towards the Soviet Union, now towards to other competitors. These events happened again. So that is help us to understand why the late 1980s and the early 1990s, the East European countries, the socialist countries collapsed, and then Soviet Union collapsed. There are somehow these international market impact play an important role. And also caused by Soviet Union at that time just rely on this barter system, means that they just exchange the products, the commercial goods, and they calculate it by the account. They don't need the paper currency. So means that the whole of the Soviet Union and the East European socialist countries at that time, not the monetization. So means that if you calculate how much as the real products produced, if you calculate the real products, they are very much high. So if you calculate the industrial products and the textiles products, whatever, these raw materials products, you can have a big number. But if you calculate into the GDP, you know, from the 1980s, when Americans lead their economy from the real economy into the financial economy, from the industrial economy into the capital economy, financial capital economy, they change. Sorry. So the Western countries change the calculation system, the statistics system. Statistic not calculate how much real products, and they calculated how much by market. So if the Soviet Union lead these socialist countries not use the market system, means that if you compare the GDP, the socialist system, these are socialist countries, GDP much lower than Western countries. And GDP means that you need to put your commercial goods into the markets, and then you sell it, and then you can calculate how much is the added value. But if you just exchange how many grain, how many cotton, you change to how many steel, how many automobile, that is just right into the account, not use the currency. So that is a quite different system. So these are difference made that the superficially Soviet Union and other socialist countries economic competition is lower, it's backward, not so advanced. That means if they don't going forward into the monetization or into the market capitalization, means that that we have gave the concept that the financialization have a two main part. One is monetization, means that whatever you produced need to be monetized, and then your country can issue a lot of paper money, and then to all of this monetization can calculate it into your economic growth, so you have a more competitive growth. And that is monetization. Another one is a capitalization, means that your firms, your enterprises, your companies, you need to go to the stock market to capitalize whatever you have as a properties. Yes, you do have a large number of the properties, but these properties, if not, you just stay there, store there, not put into the stock market. Stock market means intangible markets. The intangible events to describe whatever you have as a properties. So there is two things. One is monetization, another is capitalization. Put together is financialization. So most of these socialist countries haven't stepped in the financialization. It's because of they rely on the barter system. That means that they just exchange their products. It's a physical products, and that is enough. They don't need to have a lot of money. So they not use the money as a symbol to symbolize their properties. So that is the difference. Nowadays, most of these social movements in developing countries, they have no such kind of basic knowledge. They only think that the socialist system collapsed. But socialism never been collapsed. Just because of somehow these countries, they haven't adopted such kind of measures as a policy. So means that when these countries collapse, it's because of somehow these politicians, they take this Western concept. When they still remain in the physical production and the physical products exchange, they haven't used the money to label, to indicate whatever they have. So that is another important event, make people notice that what is the reality. So, but it's a big lesson. We have to know that it's a very big lesson, because that time China also just started to marketize their economy. I mean, Chinese economy. China also haven't issued a large number of the paper money to monetize their physical economy. China at that time, in the late 1980s, has the similar problems. China has no stock markets, no future markets, and also the real estate also have no markets. So they have, that is a very interesting. Late 1980s, China almost have a similar economic system as other European socialist countries. But when other European socialist countries, and including of Soviet Union collapse, and Western society believe China will be the next, that is reasonable. Also, that is a kind of a rational thinking, because you have the similar problems. You have a similar systems, and then maybe the problem is similar. So that is a very important background. But something different. Look at the last one. In the year 1990, the agricultural production in China increased fast, and China produced 451.8 billion. That is kilos. It's a grain. So the grain production in China not like mid-1980s, Soviet Union facing the challenge of shortage of the grain supply. But in China, when they're facing the challenge of Western media talking about the China collapse, one thing is a very, fortunately, is a difference with Russia, with Soviet Union. That is a grain production increased. And also the grain production originally increased in 1984, and then decreased. And until the 1990, the grain production have a second time increased much high. So that is to be a good events, to be the positive events, can make China have a soft landing, because you have at least your country can survive from the the hunger. This picture shows that when the so-called Iron Curtain fell, the Berlin Wall collapsed, and then Soviet Union have a big change. The upper one means that Lenin fallen down. Leninism, Stalinism, whatever, Soviet Union, no matter who is the leader, the important thing that is there are very big change of the currency value. When Soviet Union collapsed, at that time the currency only can based on the political power. So until the new, strong leader take the position, and the Soviet Union ruble, or now later became Russian ruble, is a big devalued. And I remember in the year 1991, I visited Soviet Union. At that time, it's a big change. $1 changed more than 480 billion. Oh no, 4,080, 4,800. Sorry, $1 against ruble is 4,800 ruble. But originally, before they have this big change, 1 ruble against dollar is 1 ruble can exchange $3. So means that many thousand times declined. So the ruble value is lowest at that time. So it's a big change. Not only Soviet Union, but other European, East European socialist countries. So everywhere, the money system collapsed. It gave me a very strong warning that what is money? Money is that the political powers, the close of your political power, how strong you have your political power, how strong you have your currency. So that is very important. So when I come back from East European countries and the Soviet Union, I wrote a report talking about what happened in these countries. And I also trying to give a kind of awareness to the Chinese economic reform. That is a policy society, the policy circle, trying to make them to understand what's the real problem happening in Soviet Union. And then just the same time, since the year 1990 to 1991, and China started to open the stock market and also the future markets. And later, to push the real estate market open. So these are three markets, high risk. We said it's a venture market, but all of this market can absorb large number of the currency. So meanwhile, at the same time, the Chinese governments can issue large number of the paper money, just printed. So when I remember that this is a big difference. Soviet Union stopped, never going forward to monetization. But when China take this lesson, China very fast to going inside of the monetization. When they opened the stock markets, they gave this opportunity to the that is a printing factory, 印刷厂 means that printing house or something. This printing house, it's a printing factory special for print the paper currency. So but that time I got information, I don't know if it's true or not. Means they 24 hours use this printing machine to print this paper money, RMB. Because it's too much use these machines, so it's too easy to worn out. And they got to change a new machine. And also this company going to the public, I mean, to issue their stock. And that will be very high volume. A lot of investors join the stock market to buy this printing house stock. So this is the beginning of the 1990s. Means that China changed their way. Originally, China have the similar economic system, but when they took the Soviet Union's collapse the lessons, they very soon to change to the monetization. So one side to give the room for the central bank in China to issue many paper money. Another side, they open these venture markets to absorb these paper monies, these currencies. Means that you have your money, you have currencies, you're paid not only to buy the commercial goods, buy the real products. You also need to pay your money to buy the stocks, to buy the shares. That means that this change, one side to make China avoid the same problem as Soviet Union. Another side created a new economic crisis, because whatever you adopt as a kind of measure, you can benefit it from the policies. You also need to pay the institutional cost of the policies. So the returns and the cost almost the equal. So that is one may give the explanation about Soviet Union. I said at that time I did have the chance to go to do the observation, and then what we found, and then we come back what we did in early 1990s when we did take the lesson from Soviet Union, and then China changed very soon, very fast, changed their economic system. So that is I don't know how to evaluate it's good or bad, or right or wrong. But we only can say that China avoid the collapse. And because that time, as I know that, in the year 1991, first I was in United States, almost every day, I heard a lot of people talking about China collapse. And later 1991, I went to East European countries and also went to Soviet Union. I did my observation. I did my investigations, and then finally I found that the main problem is that they remain their economy into the real economy, into physical production, they haven't stepped into the financialization. So that is, because of the world competition, they got to compete with Western society, with the Western countries. And by such kind of, not only one or two events, there are many complicated events. But there's something is a major one. So I think that the major issue is that the whole of these socialist countries only rely on the exchange commercial goods, not use the currency. So they don't have the monetization, they don't have the capitalization. So it means that they stopped from financialization. But the world competition, another side, Western countries, they all enlarged their financial capital by the neoliberalism, and then they compete with another part. So another part lost. That is why one way trying to be very roughly to summarize the 1980s situation. We can have such kind of picture. I don't want to tell you that my observation and my investigation, my research is just a one part. I don't want to say that it's right, but I want you to take into your consideration as a reference. Okay, so that is after the twin head monopoly control collapsed, the system changed. Regional integration means that the globalization must have another name as a globalization or global regional integration. The global regional integration make the world parted as a several part, separated as several parts. And at that time, China is a single one, not included by any regional integration. And also because at that time, China still be blocked by Western countries. Western countries still be led by United States. Later, after 1994, EU taking place, and after 1999, Euro taking place, and then EU can be a kind of strong competitor of the US, and NAFTA. And US and NAFTA is a regional power, and the EU also a regional power. And ASEAN going forward to put China have ASEAN plus one, and then ASEAN can be a kind of regional power. Now originally when ASEAN 1, 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 gave a big threat to United States. And then United States stepped back to Asia, trying to block ASEAN plus 1, 2, 3, especially ASEAN plus China. So that is originally there will be a triangle, ASEAN plus China, and then NAFTA, and then EU. So this triangle can make this world more stabilized, more stable. But it means that US will lose the leading position, cannot be the polar power. So after Soviet Union, there are several options. Regional integration is a very important trend. If people can do it, can keep going to have the regional integration, the world will be more peaceful, more stable, not by a one polar power to be the world policeman. So that is when we talk about the 1990s, we got to think about what is the international background. So the international background at that time is a very complicated situation. And but most of this analysis is later when we do our international comparative studies, the different countries' comparative studies, we have a more deepened thought of the world situation. We have such kind of ideas. That is a new thought, new creative. But in the beginning of 1990s, the Chinese policy circle have no such kind of vision. And because of '89, and these are politicians, also in the policy circles, they still have a kind of conservative or reform. They have a two so-called part to have the arguments. Some people think that they are conservative. Some people think they are reformist. And these are sectarian arguments still be a kind of mainstream problems. So at that time, because of they also have a no very clear picture about depression, about cyclical economic crisis. So they have no such kind of knowledge to notice that 88, 89 is high inflation and stagnant, and these enterprises, especially the real productions, all now falling into the depressions. They have no such kind of description. Also, they have no such kind of knowledge. They only think, okay, it's maybe some conservative to play a role and then whatever. So that is an ideological competition. Ideological arguments still be a kind of the leading trends of the media, of the policies. It's not good. And they also have no measures to deal with the depression. So, but that time is very important things. That is Deng Xiaoping going to the south, because that American lead Western capitalist countries block China, but doesn't mean that Hong Kong and Taiwan and these are small manufacturing industrial country and the regions followed these Western countries, because that they have these overseas Chinese entrepreneurs. They cannot stand on the high price of labor. At that time, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and so on and so, the labor price increased more faster because they have settled their 10 years. And 10 years enough. They have a very little labor resources. So when they hire almost all the laborers, the first is that the Chinese from Guangdong escaped to Hong Kong to join the Hong Kong labor markets. That is a Taogang. In the late 1980s, a lot of people think that Taogang means escaped from the Guangdong to Hong Kong, is that they are trying to take the liberalism. They are trying to gain the freedom. Ideologically gave a many report about Taogang, but indeed it's just because in Guangdong that time it's agriculture production, and then Hong Kong is manufacturing production. Manufacturing have a more high labor price, means that they can have a more high income. So a large number of this labor, they have the same language and the same behavior, same culture. It's more easier to be absorbed by Hong Kong production, so they flow to Hong Kong. That is quite easy to understand if you're a normal people, not controlled by the ideology. So it's easy to understand. So that time, the first large number of the labor flow to Hong Kong. And then the second is Hong Kong move the facilities to Guangdong, especially move to the Pearl Delta area. So when Deng Xiaoping think about this Pearl Delta area is booming economy, so he visit. And then to encourage these people going forward to absorb these Hong Kong investments. And also in Singapore. So that's almost the same time in 1990. Singapore, the leader of Singapore, Mr. Li come to China to even Singapore is the final one to set up the formal diplomatic relation with China in ASEAN countries. It means that ASEAN countries is all signed the commitments to regain the diplomatic relation with mainland China. Singapore is the last one. But Singapore at that time is meaningful because at that time American blocked China. Originally Singapore is a kind of strategic ally of United States. But when Singapore signed the commitments, Singapore regained the diplomatic relation with mainland China. The very important events Singapore did is that to set up, to move the Singapore facilities to Jiangsu, to Suzhou, to set up Singapore-Suzhou Industrial Park. These are very large foreign investments because they want to duplicate the second Singapore in Jiangsu, in Suzhou. It's also because of the very limited resources in Singapore. Singapore is just a city with several million. At that time, it's less than 3 million population. So it's a very small population size. In Suzhou, you may have a 6 million or 8 million population. It's a 2.5 times bigger than Singapore. So when Singapore moved their industrial facilities to Suzhou, means that they can reset up, they can set up the second Singapore industries. So all of these things has almost happened in the same time of Deng Xiaoping's South trip. So the South trip is an important event. It's because he tried to make all of these local cadres to believe China still can have the foreign capital flow in. And then 1992, Singapore moved the facilities to set up the Suzhou Singapore Industrial Park. Means that there's no extremity control. And then followed from 1992, 1993, followed as Singapore. A lot of Western capital still invested into mainland China. So means that it's a break the block. They gave up the block. American, after 1993, also followed other Western countries, gave up the old policy to release control. Yeah, they still control the exchange of military and high tech, but commercial production, United States released control. So that means that in very soon, that's 1992, after Deng's South trip, and then the later of the year, Chinese Central Party Committee have the 14th Party Congress commit marketization. Means a market system is the China reform aim. They set up this aim for China reform, but indeed is that reabsorb the Hong Kong and Singapore and the Taiwan, these overseas Chinese investments into China. So immediately the foreign capital flow into China since 1992 to 1993. And then meanwhile, they opened the stock market and wholesale markets and future markets and whatever. So all of these measures put together to make inflation goes high. That is a very complicated phenomena in 92 to 93. Look at this, these curves. 1993, the GDP, 1992, 1993 still be high, and then 94 decreased, 95, 96, 97, GDP, this curve shows that GDP, this blue one, the blue curve shows GDP decreased. And then the the capital added output also changed from 1993 up to the highest, and then downgrade 1994. So 1994, the crisis taking place. So what we use as a picture to show what? To show that whenever the new leadership taking the political power, they got to deal with the downgrade of economy. Means that economic crisis combining of the political leaders change. No matter who is the leader, whoever taking the political power immediately need to deal with the economic crisis. So almost the third party Congress, every time the third party Congress, when they claim that the 30-party Congress is mainly for the economic policy. But every time when they have this party Congress, they need to have the policy to deal with the crisis. That is the regulation. It's a very objective regulation. No matter these media, these ideology researchers, whatever they said, they cannot change objective phenomena. So this one to show that when Deng Xiaoping take the power, the GDP downgrade. When Jiang Zemin took the power, also Zhao Ziyang take power, also downgrade. And Jiang Zemin, the third high, yes, when he took power, GDP downgrade. Only Hu Jintao, fortunately, he met GDP upgrade. It's because of last time the premier is Zhu Rongji. Zhu Rongji adopt the policy as Roosevelt New Deal in 1930. So Zhu Rongji gave a large amount of the government bonds investments to solve the problems of 1997's East Asian financial turmoil. That way we talk about the eighth crisis, not now. But I just gave as a regulation. No matter who took power, immediately need to deal with the economic downgrade. Means that the economic cycle combining the political cycle. The political is a cycling changed. Economic is also cycling changed. But you can merge them together. So this picture is very interesting to show that there is a kind of objective regulation. You may do your analysis on this one. How China pass this short-term profound crisis will still be a very important to make other countries, scholars, and the politicians to understand what happened in China, especially in 1990s. Most of these mainstream scholars and politicians inside of China, they believe that Chinese reform is indeed start from the 1992-1993. Few people talking about it's because of the 1993 there are very serious economic crisis happened. They think that from that time, from the beginning of the 1990s, especially from the 14-party Congress, China start the reform. But that is another description. Our description is that from that time, China exactly started the capitalization. I have mentioned financialization is a mainstream. Under that, there's two parts. One is monetization, another is capitalization. These are two main sectors. Monetization, capitalization combining together. is financialization. So I should give you my arguments. From the beginning of the 1990s, China real started definancialization. Means that China is going forward into the world capitalism. Not only the industrial capitalism, but also the financial capitalism. So 1990s is the decades of the Chinese financialization. It's the first decades. Second decades and the third decades, now we are in. Okay, so when we talk about that, we got to see that from the 1980s, we said it's marketization. So the reform means that applied to marketization. From 1990s, we said China initiate capitalization. So that is all the reform applied to capitalization. And you can see that the later 1980s, the crisis happened and then fall into the depression. During this depression period, from the 1990, the China policy circle initiate the shareholder system to make this company to set up the shareholder system, to make all the real properties to become, that's real properties is machines and the house and whatever, to make them into the shares. So the 股份化, I don't know how to translate into the English. 股份化 means stock, not the stock. Share, shareization or something.
Shares holding?
Shares holding, but it doesn't mean 化. 化 means that to change the real properties, physical properties, into value, into a kind of intangible value. Understand me? Means that you put all the properties into the shares, and then to use these shares into the stock markets, and then you can absorb large number of the paper money in, and then even that it's the high risk. So every time the risk can make a lot of money vanish. So this means that you can play the game of financialization. So that's a very interesting period. So, but when we have such kind of shareization, let's just give a hyphen, shareization, you can think that how much value you can create it to be the added value. That is very, very important. And then monetization. So originally China have a barter system, means that every commercial goods, you cannot directly use your money. So your currency cannot be currency. So I remember that I have given a lecture talking about which year is that Chinese yuan, RMB yuan, can be the money, the real money, real currency. Before 1992, Chinese RMB yuan, not the currency. Because at that time you need to use these vouchers. All the small books. Whatever you want to buy, you need meanwhile to use your voucher. So voucher at that time also play a role as money. Means that even you have money, you cannot use the money. So the money cannot be money. Money can be money started from 1992, because 1992 Chinese governments abandoned the voucher system, the barter system, and then almost everything you can buy only use your currency. So that is why I said it started year is 1992. Means that monetization started in China from 1992. Shareization starts from 1990, and then monetization starts from 1992. When you have the share, you must make shares go into the market. So 1991, China set up the stock market. Shanghai and Shenzhen stock markets all set up in 1991. So 1990 we have shares. 1991 we have a stock market. 1992 we gave up this voucher system. We have a monetization. So these are 3 years, one by another, step by step. That is so-called reform. But indeed, it's capitalization. It's monetization. So by these very radical reform, radical measures to push China from the physical production country, from a kind of industrialized country into the financialized country. So we should know that the 1993-1994 crisis exactly is that the institutional cost caused by very radical to push China from the physical industry country into the financialized country. That is why I said that the 7th crisis in China is very important, because this big events, it's a big change. Even I can say it's essentially change. Basic change. That is from the beginning of the 1990s. But this change happened in the depression period. Few countries in the world can do such kind of change. Basically, essentially, change a country's economic essential. From real production country, from real industrial country, physical production country, into the financial country, by depression, by crisis, also by the block, by Western countries block you. That is a very strange. That is also need a lot of people join the research. I hope our scholars not only focus on ideological description, do something to the real economy, to what happened is real, reality. And then we may have some kind of knowledge to know, to understand what is China. So that is why I talk about that. Shareization, open stock markets, and then start monetization. And also caused by Deng South trip, these southeast provinces, coastal area, absorb a lot of rootless overseas Chinese investments. And then to absorb a large number of these rural laborers as migrants flow to the coastal area. It's also very important. When I talk about the background, I said in the year 1990, China have the highest yield, green yield is the highest, much higher than 1984, because 84 is the very high, it's the whole of the 1980s. 84 is the highest yield, and then 1990, China have the second high yield grain. But the more you have the yield products of agriculture, the lower price, because you have marketized, you have give up the quota control. So when you marketize the agriculture, means the agricultural price, the more they have a yield, the lower price. And then the producers, the peasants, have no income. And then when you do some reform and you absorb this manufacturing production into the coastal area, certainly these low-income farmers, these agricultural laborers flow out. That is also, I mentioned that China is a large labor resources country, the largest. And in rural, we have a 500 million labor force. The agriculture only need 100 million. We have a 500 million, means that another 400 million can be used by industries. But we haven't such kind of big industries. So means that there still be a large number of the labor now stored in the agriculture. It's also give a very special priority to these coastal provinces, these areas. They only use the young labor, I said the fresh labor, 18 years to 28 years. They only take the fresh labor, 10 years means the best labor age taken by the coastal manufacturing industries, pay little. They have lowest income, lowest salary, but it's the high quality labor, 18 years old to 28 years old. That is so I said the grassroots, the fresh part of the grassroots taken by the manufacturing industries in coastal area, but pay little. That is a very, very roughly, it's wild capitalism. Only need young labor. Certainly that they have some high capital return, much higher than they settled in Singapore, in Hong Kong, or in Taiwan and in Korea. So that's why they keep move to China for more than 10 years. Even that China have so many bad comments from the Western media, but this capital investment still flow into China because they can take the best quality labor, pay very little price, and also they don't pay the environmental cost. So means that they can have a very little pay and to have a very high return. So that is that time. So when all of these foreign capital flow into China, immediately by the central bank against this foreign capital to issue large number of the RMB yuan. That is also accelerate the financialization. So these are things, these events, very short time to happen, and then to make very soon in 1993 Chinese economic grow fast. That's a very interesting phenomenon. Originally from 1991, these are 2 years depression. 1992 recovered. 1993 high growth. And then this high growth also make a lot of tension relations. And also because of at that time they have issued large number of the currency. So the inflation, the base of the inflation has been there. So when you have a large number of the domestic demand, all the raw materials, oil, energy, and whatever, all have a very strong needs, immediately turn to the high inflation. So 1993, when they take too much foreign capital, they have a large number of the foreign debts, and then turn to the budget debts. And then you need to combining the financial investment from domestic bank, so the bank have a very much bad loan. And also the savings cannot catch the loans. And so the percentage between savings and loans means the loans are much higher than the savings. Means that the bank cannot give enough supply to the local needs. And so means that the foreign reserve, the budget system, and the bank system all have a deficit. That is 1993. And 1994, all of these three deficits turn to the high inflation. And then the CPI higher than 24.1. It's much higher than the crisis in 1988. 1988, the CPI is 18.6%. But 1994, 24.1%. It's the highest CPI in whole of this so-called 70 years the modern China economic history. So it's the highest CPI in the history, in New China's history. And caused by this very high inflation, similar things happened in any country, any system, any political regime. If you have very high inflation, means that almost all of enterprises, entrepreneurs, cannot invest into the real production. They need to take their money out of the real production for speculation. Same things happened in 1949 in China, 49 to 50s. Now you have many private investors. Certainly they wouldn't like to stay in the real production. They take the money into the speculation, also into the smugglings. So at that time, speculation goes high, and then also smugglings. And then these smugglings also make a lot of bad things, like exchange rate. Smugglings, because smuggling have 1/3 of the tax they didn't pay, means that they have a kind of very ventral income, come from no pay of the tax. Certainly they can pay to the exchange rate. So smuggling in China at that time, in later years, Zhu Rongji as a premier, talking about smuggling, he said annually we have 800 billion annual smuggling volume. So it means that at least more than 200 billion as a tax lost. So, because they have this extra income, they can pay very high exchange rate. So that time, the market exchange rate, Chinese yuan against dollar, the Chinese yuan only, I think that $1 can have 11 Chinese yuan. Normal markets is 8.7 or 8.8, but smuggling exchange, $1 against 11, even more Chinese yuan. So it means that you cannot make order, you cannot make the reform to just marketize the exchange rate. So many things happen when the crisis taking place. And then you can see that what is the measures the governments take at that time to deal with the crisis. The first is because of the capitalization has been there, has been going forward. You cannot stop. So they only can have the measures applied to capitalization. So means that they going forward. First is that to marketize the foreign exchange. To make the RMB yuan devalued 57% one time. So since the January 1st of 1994, they adopt several critical measures. First is that exchange rate. Means indeed RMB yuan devalued 57% nominally. In practice, and it's devalued 52%. Nominally devalued 57%. And meanwhile, it's that RMB yuan linked to dollar. Until new century, they change. At that time, it's almost 20 years. Fixed to dollar value, and then waived with the dollar value. The second one is that issued more budget bonds, and also the currency. That is almost that means that to worsen the high inflation, the worsening high inflation, and then the same time to have the taxation sharing reform to make the central part of the tax increased, and then local part decreased. Originally, local tax can be 73% of the total amount of the tax. Central just 23 or 27 or 27. Local is 73%. So when they have this tax reform, central and local half-half, it means that central increased 20%. The local lost 20%. And then local need to take this 20% from rural society. Because down to the county level, almost every county, they have a very serious budget deficit. So they only can rely on the non-budget income. Where does non-budget income come from? Come from occupying the peasants' land, occupying the rural land, and then sell to the markets. So since the mid-1990s, a lot of people going to the street for campaign, for the protesting of land. But you cannot stop this local behavior because they are short of the budget income. So these things means that to change the cost, to turning the capitalization's cost into the local, into the rural society, also means cost transferring. And also for low class income decreased. And also because the budget cannot pay for the education and the medical care. So they have the marketized reform of education system and the medical service system. And also means that the low class people could hardly pay so much high cost of the education and the medical service. Certainly that the teachers and the doctors, their income goes high, but low class cannot pay such kind of high cost. It also means that change the institutional cost to low class people, to marginalized population. So that is these are measures. And then finally, they got to turn the measures into the state-owned enterprises. They raise up a new policy. That is take big one, release small one. You give up small, means that these are small and mid-sized enterprises originally belong to the state. Now release them to go into the market, means that you can go into the bankruptcy. So these measures also means that to turn the institutional cost to the SOE employees. So when the crisis happened, you do your research on these measures. What government did in 1994 when the crisis happened? You can find that most of these measures means that they are trying to apply the capitalization and then to change the cost into the marginalized population, into the low class. So that is the mid-1990s, in name of the economic reform, but indeed it's transferring the institutional cost. Let's see these measures. That is the picture. The new China authorized the first share. That is in Hainan. Hainan at that time is experiment province to carry out the share reform. So that is the reform. Very soon, from 1990, they set up the share system. And then 1992, many hundreds, thousands enterprises turn to the shareholder system. And we can see that after share, you have a share in 1990, and then 1991, you can have a stock market. So 1990s, December, Shanghai have the stock market, and then 1991, in July, Shenzhen have stock market. So these are one by another. They have these stock markets. But not only that, in almost every province, even in these industrial cities, they also very urgent to push their enterprises into the shareholder system. And then they have a large number of the shares. They all want to use these shares to change into the investments. So everywhere they have informal stock markets. Even in the free markets, you can find some people sell their shares not in counter, out of the counter. So this very interesting phenomena happening almost everywhere. So that also push the central authority set up these formal stock markets, and then to close down all of these local informal stock markets. So in the beginning of the 1990s, everywhere you can find the people sell the shares. So the capitalization of the Chinese economy is a wild and wide spread into the whole China. You can think about that time. Nobody just follow the law or the regulation. They think that it's a kind of a big profit. A lot of people want to take, not job. We cannot say that it's bad word, but it's somehow to make these departments, especially the departments in charge of the shareholder system, personally take a lot of shares. That time, people said it's 干股, means that you don't need to have money. You only have the power. You have a right, and then you can have shares. That means that dry share, not the wet. It's you don't need to pay even little drop money. So you have no money, but you have a dry shares. Word-to-word translation. And it's exactly the power or the right share. And it also means that these officials became corruptions. They took these dry shares, means that you took the properties, and if you sell, means that you have currencies. So it means that these are people, these are government employees, became corruptions. So the corruptions became, you know, everywhere they have shares. They have the reform of the shareholders. They are trying to set up the shareholder system. So almost a lot of cadres, I cannot say how many percentage, but many people take a dry share. And then corruption became nationwide. And also the local cadres even encourage smuggling, because smuggling can have at least 1/3 of the income come from you don't pay the tax. The custom tax is 1/3. So at that time, a lot of local cadres fall into the trap of the smuggling. And but sometimes they also very fortunately to have the promotion, like a governor of Hainan province. He encouraged local cadres to have smuggling, and then take a large amount of the income, even higher than the total production value of the whole province. It means a large number of the smuggling. And then certainly he will got a penalty and down to the county levels leader. But several years later, he got the promotion to be the Guangxi province governor. And when he was in Guangxi, vice governor, he also encouraged local to have smuggling. So nowadays, Guangxi still be a very big business smuggling. So you cannot understand what is a centralized, what is central power, what they did at that time. So a lot of incountable, it's incredible things happened in 1990s, but all are in name of reform. So when we talk about the stock market, we talk about smugglings, we must know that in 1990s, not very formally. The reform also not very formally. And then a lot of people take large of benefits from such kind of informal reform. That's one to show that in 1993, 1994, M2 to GDP goes high and then pass the gate that is 100%. Originally that GDP goes high and the money goes high. Yes, more GDP need more money. Yes, that is combining. But from 1994, we said the monetization means that you give more money, more than GDP. Nowadays it's almost 200%, but started from 1994 when they issued more paper money. That time it's not only because of the monetization, but also because of this inflation. More money issued above the GDP growth means that the potential inflation has been created, has been set there. So here also means that from 1994, the monthly rates of the change of consumer price index, CPI, that 1994 is a monthly calculate, it's a very much high. It's because of the monetization, capitalization. It shows that the right one is a CPI, and the food CPI is a green one, and the clothing is a daily consumptions. These are consumptions. Consumers' price is much higher than the inflation. Means the common people take too much cost. So apply to monetization, you need to have the instrument. So the governments did a big change. Originally, the bank belonged to the state, play an important role for implement of the policy. So the bank is another pocket of the governments. The first pocket of governments is budget. Second pocket of governments is a bank. All carry out the government policy. But because of monetization and the capitalization, and China have first set up the commercial bank in the year of 1993. Same year. When you accelerate monetization, you need to have a tool, that is a commercial bank. So since the 1993, Chinese governments issued new documents to split the policy function from the bank system, and then reset up the policy bank. So we have from that year, 1993, 1994, we have a 4 state commercial bank. We also have another 3 policy bank. And then after that, the central bank became central bank. Originally, central bank also have a commercial business. Originally, we only have one bank is enough. All belong to the governments. So that's before reform, central bank also have the business. But after this parted, the function, so we have a commercial bank, policy bank, and the central bank only implement the macro adjustments as a central bank. So central bank became central bank. I said, remember, I talked about 1992, currency became currency. 1993, bank become commercial bank. All applied to monetization. And then the policy function split from the commercial bank. So China set up 3 policy bank. And then when they finish this structure of the financial system, the central bank became upper grade to be the central bank. Only carry out the readjustment, the macro policies. So that means from the beginning of 1990s, the first part of 1990, applied to the financialization, China did have the reform of the financial system. And when we talk about the 1993-1994 crisis, you can see there's a curve, there's a bar. And 1998, 1999, there's a big downgrade. And 1993 and 1994 doesn't mean that the production decreased, but means what? Means that the exports and the import will become deficit. It's down to the 0, 1993. This means that exports down to the minus. And then when you have large amount of the manufacturing investment in China, so you have a large increase of the capital volume, because that's foreign capital flow in China. So you have a capital increment. And also because of you have a monetization to make some interest group, and then you have a consumption expense. So 1993 all goes high, and that means that suddenly you have a high growth. And then turn to 1994 means that you have 3 very important things. That is, first, reform means that the exchange reform, RMB devalued 57%. And then tax reform means the tax revenue sharing with the local and the central, half and half. And then monetization and capitalization to make this the economic growth downgrade. But the exports increased, but the consumption decreased. These are bars to show 1993 high growth and then 1994 downgrade. We can also see that the foreign debts, left part of the curve to show that the foreign debts almost the percentage of foreign debts up to 100%. When you absorb large number of the foreign investments, turn to the foreign debts, and then to make 1993, 1994, the foreign debts goes much higher. So that is last time's crisis in late 1980s. The crisis also caused by the foreign debts increment. And then in the year 1994, the 1993, also caused by the foreign debts goes high. So originally in 1988-89, the foreign debts climbed to 70%. This time, 1994, foreign debts percentage close to 100%. So these became the very important events of the economic crisis. Here also shows that 1994, 1993, the green curve, the curve green color, means that the current account, the balance of current account. And in 1993, it's down to the minus until 1997. And the red one means that the hard currency reserve, the foreign reserve, and also that time is lower, and the annual current account surplus in 1993 also decreased to the minus. So this means that you have a kind of budget deficit, you also have a current account deficit. These deficits turned to the budget system, became the budget deficit. And so that is also the reason for China changed exchange rate. So this shows the background of exchange rate reform. That is also in name of marketization. Here is these curves shows that the fiscal system reform, why they have a tax reform. Tax reform caused by the central budget percentage downgrade. You can see that this green curve shows the central income of the total fiscal income. And in the beginning of 1990s, downgrade very fast until 1994, the tax reform increased. And then because of the fiscal income to GDP decreased, so the governments can do nothing. Generally speaking, the government's fiscal income to GDP in normal country is more than 30%. In welfare country, these are like North European countries, it's a high welfare. They need more than 50%. Somehow like Sweden or Denmark, even more than 60%. So UK is 50%, US 34%. In China at that time, it's just 11%. 11% means that you can do nothing. So this picture also shows that because of radical reform, monetization and capitalization, governments play less important role. And then the government's fiscal income became lower and lower. Governments cannot pay the social cost. So that time is why the education and the medical service all push into the markets, because there's no fiscal income. Until 1995, it's income, the fiscal income increased. And then until the new century, they can have a little payments for the social welfare and whatever. But up to now, the government still pay little in the education and the medical service. So that is at that time very big change for the capitalization. So when you capitalize almost the public goods, you almost public everything, even the hospital and the university and the schools all capitalized, means that the capitalization gave up a lot of cost, especially the social cost. So the 1990s, the social cost taken by the low class. Here is the case to show that the local budget have a very big deficit. They only can take the non-budget income, because formal budget income decreased very fast. They have no such kind of ability to pay for even the cadre's salary, the teacher's salary. So in 1990s, down to the county level, a lot of local cadres cannot have monthly salary. Means that the county budget, half income, they can pay the salaries to the doctors, teachers, and the cadres. If they have less budget income, they just no pay. They just pay to these retired cadres. Means that because these cadres have no ability. But if you are in the position, you are cadre, they don't pay you. Means that you need to take money by yourself. It's very strange. None of any people can believe that. But indeed, in 1990s, a lot of cadres have no salary, but still have their life. You can imagine what happened. So this, I don't want to say that all of them fall into the corruption. But if you don't want to use your power to take some interest, to take some benefits, means that you have no income, no money. So this case, this curve shows that it's a very serious situation in the, down to the county level. This one is one county in southwest China in a mountain area. The yellow one is that non-budget income. The whole county's budget income in 1990s caused by the 1993-1994 crisis. This non-budget income goes much high by selling the land. When they're selling the land, they need to take the land from rural area, from the village. They pay little to take the land and then sell maybe many times high price. So that is a non-budget income goes high, even 80% in some counties, 80% of budget, 80% of non-budget income as the non-budget income play 80% of the total income. Mainly come from the land occupation, and then aroused a lot of campaigns. So that time, we have a special concept that is a mass群体性治安事件 mass insecurity events, something like that. But means that large number of the people join this so-called mass campaign, and annually increased 10,000, and that is also from the 1990s until now. It's every year is 15,000 so-called mass uneven events. So that is a very important phenomena that you must know that caused by that. And then down to the village, down to the county, they can take the non-budget income by occupied land. And then down to the county, everything turned to the debts. They need to construct the road in the village. They need to give the investment into the irrigation. Many in village construction all need money, but they have no money. Only can take the loan from these rich people, or from the, not from bank cannot give them, or from enterprise, but all are high interest rate. So the later 1990s, the village deficit, the village bad loan, in average, so several million, 3 to 4 million, because long-termly they have no investment from upper governments, but they got to care about their own infrastructure construction and the social welfare. They have aging people, they have women, they have children. They need to care about all of these things, and then all these things need to give the expense. They need to money, but no money. They only can take the loan. The loan turn to the deficit. So the village, they have no budget, but they got to take the money to pay all of these needs. Village also became very serious, and township. So the township also need to pay for the public constructions. So 10 years later, you can find that the budget deficit in county level, township level, and the village level all are very bad. So I remember once a time when we do our investigation in the local, we found that the township budget deficit higher than 40 million. The village, they have no budget, but the village bad loan and the village the debts increased to millions, 3 million, 4 million at that time. So this phenomenon still be there and also still be increased until now. I have no chance to carry out the investigation nowadays, but it must be more than 10 times increment. So the lower levels, not only the governments, but also the village administratives, all have a very serious deficit and the debts since that time. So when we gave the conclusion, when we try to summarize 1990s, the crisis, we got to say that monetization and the capitalization is a two mainstream of financialization. China catch up financialization, avoid the collapse. Not give, not allow this prediction from Western countries at the beginning of the 1990s to predict China must be collapsed. China haven't been collapsed. Avoid the collapse, but pay very high cost. Because avoid the collapse means that you need to avoid the Soviet Union's lesson to step into the financialization. Because financialization led by 1980s neoliberalism. When they changed the statistics system, they changed the essential of world economy. If you cannot follow, means that you will be the loser. The person be the loser, that is a small event. But if a country, especially the biggest population country, became loser, that will be the disaster. So China followed, catch up the financialization by their own measures, monetization, capitalization, to give the reform of the shareholder system, and then to issue the shares, and then open the stock markets, and then to edit the currency publications, whatever. Then they publish a lot of money, and then to make M2 to GDP from 100% increase to the 200%, and then nowadays the total financial capital in China even bigger than United States, than EU. Means when China joins the competition by this big continental country itself, even China haven't joined assign or join any regional integrations, but China did the efforts trying to have it. But the main picture we have to have, that is China followed the world financialization as a historical era. This one is a main picture. The main idea we got to take from this lecture. But when they transit to the financialization, when they follow the United States neoliberalism, they got to pay very high cost. One thing is that the financialization means that you join the financial competition. And then financial competition means that the dollar system deal with Chinese RMB yuan as a main competitor. You need to learn how to win such kind of competition. Another side, financial capitalization is a euro, it's a kind of mainstream, mainly rely on transfer out their cost to other region or other countries, mainly transfer out to developing country. But inside of China, when you cannot transfer out your financialization's institutional cost to outside, you only can transfer to the inside, to low class, to rural people, to environment, to natural resources. That is the internal contradiction became more and more worse. The tension relation inside also became worse. So, caused by the first period of the capitalization, and then the 1994 crisis happened. The government's radical measures to deal with the crisis means that they transfer the institutional cost lower, level by level, down to the county, and then to make the lower governments give more bad treatment to low class, and also to make the government's departments, especially the economic departments, involved of this capitalization to take large amount of benefits became corruptions. So nowadays, the government's corruptions became big challenge to this new authority. So we should know that the government's corruption started from the 1990s capitalization. And then we may understand why that is a very critical issue now, because it's more than 20 years past. This capitalization more than 20 years. And when we have such kind of main picture, we may understand if China still be China, maintain such kind of Chinese marketized socialist reform or socialized market system, whatever, you need to know that there is a kind of internal mechanism. If China cannot strengthen the rural society, if China cannot rebalance the regional gap, the rural and the urban gap, China will be destroyed by internal contradiction. Because if the local people, the low class people cannot have an increment of their income, you will have no domestic demand. Even you have industrialized, you cannot long-termly rely on exports overseas demand, especially when United States have aware by Obama and followed by Trump, aware that the United States must regain the real production. The physical production means that they will largely decrease overseas demand. So if you cannot make your people, your local, have domestic demand, the total industrial capital will be no room to keep going. So that is when we have the main picture, we will have a kind of analysis of the future to show that China passed this danger in the late 1980s and the early 1990s. That is a very serious danger. Should be followed Soviet Union collapse, but China survived. They made a big change. That big change is capitalization. That's monetization. That is a big reform. But caused by the big reform, China has entered the new era of financialization, joined the financial competition, and also trying to maintain the industrial capital. So they have China now put this country into two eras. One is lower euro, that is industrial capital. Another is high euro, that's financial capital. So China trying to make this a big body, rely on these two different euro, that is also the capitalism. So when we have such kind of understand, you mean these are two euro originally is apartheid, but caused by China catch the financial capital euro, that's up level, and stand on the industrial capital euro, that is low level. So it means that they put these two things together in this one country. It's quite strange. So have such kind of picture, we can understand what its difficulties now China have. And also think about this international situation. The first is Americans succeeded to upgrade to the financial capital era, mainly rely on the military power to control all of this surplus of the capital flow into the United States to make the American capital economy grow up. That is their strategy. That means America must maintain power in the world based on the military force. But all of this world has been divided into several regional integration. So if you do your forehead, you can think that the leading country, that's the United States, got to not only deal with China, but also need to deal with ASEAN and EU. Nowadays, American cannot hold on the NAFTA because that the world situation changed a little bit to make American cannot hold the NAFTA. So if American cannot hold NAFTA, means that the regional integration will not be succeeded. But other regional integration still be also have some little bit change, also have difficulties. But this competition by this three part will be more complicated in future. So when China have done the over financialization inside, China got to go internationally to join the financial competition, not only inside, but also outside. That is also, you can understand, this mainstream interest group, very urgent, want to make the financial sector have openness. So all of these things to organize where it's a complicated situation, to blend any politician's eyes. Nowadays, nobody can give a very clear analysis about this complicated situation, where to go. So even we have done our analysis to know where we come from, where we are, we still cannot give a very clear analysis about where we should go, where we must go. So when we finish our analysis about the 7th cyclical crisis, I still keep this thinking in mind. When we do our analysis about financialization, started from that beginning of the 1990s, and what is the returns, what is the cost, we know that. We still cannot give very clear pictures to show that where we should be. That is very difficult nowadays. So when I finished that lecture, I got to say that sorry, and even I have done the analysis about the 1990s. We still need to keep going to understand what is happened following, and maybe when we finish the whole of this 10 times crisis analysis, we may have a more clear picture. So let's keep that story, waiting for the other analysis. Thank you. I finished.